So my wife and I met on Match.com, and yet when we go through, when you look at the landscapes right now, Match is hardly even in the conversation in the realm of dating apps, as are some of the other initial, like, first generation versions of dating apps. The OK Cupid, I saw Plenty of Fish was like mentioned, which I even forgot was an app.
I remember that.
But instead it is now Tinder, of course, Bumble, Grinder, these other types of
Hinge.
apps.
Hinge is big
Hinge,
too. Yeah.
Hinge is the big one now. I guess there are a couple of newer ones that have popped up. Um, so it's a very interesting space. I don't know a whole lot about it, so I'd love for you to kind of like kick us off and tell us a little bit about what has been your experience right now
Yeah, I
with
mean,
the
if
apps.
we're getting our focus here is to really give feedback on, companies, apps, and platforms
Yeah,
when it comes to a user experience side. So we're going to stay in that realm. And one of those is just I guess it's just the misfortune of like how, um, yeah, just how upsetting dating apps have become. I mean, it's absolutely like horrendous. And not a single person is like really getting any satisfaction out of dating, out of using the apps, meeting people and having success rates. And I feel like maybe when you and your wife met on Match, if there was like a different trend happening, because right now I do feel like it's something's lost in translation with people meeting up and actually like having these happy endings where you are in a long-term relationship or you get married.
yeah. I well, part of me thinks if so, part of me thinks about what the purpose of the apps are, and if we think about the purpose of the apps and how a lot of apps are being used nowadays, they want continuous engagement, right? And they Match, as it was designed, and their success was that you would use it and then you would leave, right? And really, if you think about a success, any kind of like app that is successful, purpose should be that you don't have continuous users. What you have is you have a user that uses it kind of like any type of service app, right? Like a DoorDash or something, right? Where you hop on, you order the pizza, and you're done. And you don't need to continuously be on it. You're on it for the service, and
Right.
then you're off of it. And if you think about a lot of these other apps, what they're trying to do, what it seems like what I'm seeing the interaction patterns are, is to funnel addiction, right? And to give dopamine rushes from the casino that is being able to like swipe and see photos and see images of potential partners, right? So that's different from almost 15, 20 years ago when we got onto Match, where Match, yes, it did have photos, but it also had a profile section where you would read about a little bit about the person and then you would contact. And it was more about net connection and messaging.
Yeah.
And it seems as though Tinder and some of these others, from what I have seen just viewing online, are more about the hookup culture.
Yeah. Yeah, so a couple things that from like a metric standpoint, let's just
Yeah,
kind of get into that and we can kind of go into some of this data and what's currently happening. So what we see is the comparison of dating apps versus adult platforms. You have a
yeah,
business model alignment where in adult platforms, the profit from creator success is a positive. There's a positive user satisfaction of plus 45 for their NPS score. Can you guess, Ryan, what you think is happening in dating apps?
I would imagine that in dating apps, there's a it's probably going in the opposite direction.
You are correct. You have the complete opposite direction, a negative 45 NPS score, because the business model profit is from, get this, user failure.
Yeah, that tracks, right?
Yeah.
That makes sense because you have to keep the addictive loop happening.
And so, I mean, right off the bat, I'm thinking about, I've been in conversations. I think the current dating apps being created by, I don't know, let's say people under the age of 30, under the age of 25. How old are these
Yeah,
people? You know,
probably.
and I'm thinking we need a mature demographic. I'm not like saying that these apps aren't doing some service to certain people, but overall, the majority of you users don't like your apps. They don't like using them. They're signing off. They're blacking out, right? They're just like on blackout. Social media, Instagram, Facebook, people are signing off. They're doing fasts so that they
Hmm.
don't use your apps for a while, for a long time, because they are tired. They are wary. There is a disrespect, I think, that's happening to people, and they can't tolerate it. So you do need to break from these apps because it's like actually hurting your well-being.
Can you talk a little more to that? Tell me what, if you don't mind sharing, can you tell me a little bit about like what's been your experience, or what have you heard about other folks' experiences on the apps that have been more specific, that have been causing the user
Yeah.
harm?
I'll speak to an individual, I won't name them, but a woman, on the apps, looking to date and see if she can meet someone long term, wanting a long term relationship. And just yeah, the quality, the matching is really not like a one-to-one. I think even Hinge asks you specific questions that are private about what you're looking for, so that I believe their AI model is like sifting through these profiles trying to match up the
Mhm.
profiles, and it's not working. And so
Mhm.
what I see is, a lot of people going out on dates, you know, other friends, family encouraging them to go on a second date. How do you really know what a first, and I wouldn't even call the first date a date. It's like
Yeah.
you're meeting a absolute stranger. Let's just
Mhm.
say you're just hanging out, right? You just met. Obviously with the context of texting prior, or maybe a phone call. And so the chemistry isn't there. There's something happening when you meet people up in person. It's not working out. And I don't know if that's, you know, even what was happening 20 years ago or not, because obviously with Match, eHarmony, these kind of
Right.
sites that have been around for a while, so there's some sort of success that happened, but right now, I'm just seeing a complete dissatisfaction, and the NPS score is just a marker of data that is just exposing something that is completely wrong. And I think being on the apps too long, in this way of rejection, is like hurting our well-being. And that's what I hear from people is swiping on people that you don't like is actually hurting us too. That there's
Mhm.
something like in our system where it's like, this is another human being. And there may be one thing that we may not match about, but why should we swipe and reject them? Like, what is it? This feels like an angry gesture. I feel
Mm.
like there's something wrong with that. Instead, maybe the apps, hint, hint, here's an idea from a user experience professional that can help you, honestly make millions on your apps if you actually listen to end users. Why don't you instead make it more thoughtful, and instead of just a swipe, just say, you know what, we just don't, I can't, I'd like maybe someone who has like a similar value, and you just have to write it in, or something where there is like a serious input so that you can make your match. And matches that don't match up, there's like an explanation around it. You would do that in person. You would just leave
Hmm.
someone hanging and walk away from them. People don't do that. These
Hmm.
apps shouldn't do that either.
Well, looking at the data here too, it sounds like there's a couple of elements that you're talking about, which is one, it sounds a little bit like there's a psychological safety element in terms of like both what's being done to the person that is rejected and the person that's doing the rejecting. There's also in some of this data looking at like trends in 2025. Um, men, what's surprising, I think, to me, is that, well, it's not too surprising, but uh, more men through dating experiences um, are rating their positive experiences higher than women, and the negative experiences, women are rating higher um, than men. I also see that. Let me check the there's another breakdown here of there's also an interesting element I just want to bring in as well. LGBTQ plus folks are tending to use their own apps or going to separate apps from the main apps, which I think is very interesting as well.
Yeah.
The LGBTQ plus apps have a 7.8 out of 10 satisfaction score as
Okay.
well.
I would say there's something to be said about possibly how monetization is working on apps.
Hmm.
And possibly, these beginning companies like eHarmony, like Match, like Plenty of Fish and whatever, they weren't as focused on meeting quarter four, dollars.
Right. Yeah.
And instead, they may have been more focused on the end user's experience. And so what you're seeing is people um, actually just not even just signing off the app, but they are deleting the apps. And they're like, okay, I'm just going to meet people in real life. This is not worth it. It's not worth my, energy, right? There's a energy
Yeah.
that you have to output as
Yeah.
a human being to, come to a date in a certain mood, right? And
Mhm.
just like bring your best foot forward, obviously. And
Yeah.
there's only so much that people can, give. And so if a lot of those experiences are negative, what do you think is going to happen to your app? No one's going to
Well,
want to be there.
and from what I'm seeing from some of this data, to your point, it looks like 80% of Gen Z feels burned out from using these apps, which is
Sure.
stunning.
Wow.
Um, and the base is declining. It was down 16%. And to the conversation that we had last week about gaming and thinking about moderation, 55% encounter of fake AI profiles on these dating apps.
What's the
So
percentage
55%
of their fake profiles?
fake profiles proliferating these dating apps.
I'm going to tell you what I've heard on the male side that are looking for
Yeah.
female is they have said they are getting duped by fake profiles more than women. That's
Yeah.
another thing I've heard from just male counterparts.
It looks like there's also a huge percentage to that point. There's a huge percentage of deep fake growth happening in those areas as well.
I know that one thing to say about at least being on Hinge and Bumble is that there are verifications of your current, so that catfishing
Yeah.
Just that around people using photos from, let's say, high school, and you're really 20 years older than those photos.
Uh-huh.
And so what's happened is, I believe, with this verification process of a blue check mark, it has you actually rotate your face, and similar to Face ID,
Mhm.
that user experience, to do that in order to verify that you look like your photos. So that's a new feature they've implemented for these, and I think that has been in decline too. Is
Mhm.
using photos that don't actually aren't current. People have also added that, like, hey, I've put my current photos on, so they've also kind of created that safety of, here's some current photos of what I look like today.
Yeah.
So I think with apps, what I see is happening, and obviously being in user experience, having my own company, being a consultant, what I see is happening is there is a huge need to develop a new kind of app. I
Mhm.
think what people are looking at, and not to give away some, secrets, but therapists that have some ideas around building conflict resolution, being a little bit more, just fair when it comes to assessment,
Mhm.
and also, let's say the end goal is to stay on the apps. Is that the end goal? If it is, sure. Well, why do people stay on dating apps? And why don't you expand that just a little bit? Think through that you could create apps for educational purposes, so that not only are you a good dater, but you are in a good relationship. So
Yeah.
create education, gamify it on conflict resolution, on being a good partner. Like, this isn't rocket science. Like, we already have this. Like, I think the narrowness of, like, how people in Silicon Valley are, just like exposing, like monetizing things. It's like, why don't you just look up for a second and think about things a little bit more, where it's like, well, how else can we keep people in the app? How about educating them on being a good partner, right? And we're not going to fall short on this person being a reoccurring user, because if you, as we all know, if someone has a
Mhm.
successful relationship, the word of mouth is going to give you fivefold, tenfold, 50-fold, depending on their network. So, I mean, I think we act, especially in software development, we act in a scarcity mindset.
Yeah. You know, you hit on something there that I say so if you and I were to get people about our age from all over the country, we were all go sit into a bar together, and we had different just beliefs, political beliefs, everything in the world. We could have everything in the world being different. I think the one thing that people our age and older could all agree on is the fact that we're really happy that we fucked up when we were young before social media existed. And I think you and I talked a different another point on this. I think that there's a statistic that a lot of young people now have never even asked out a person in real life. I think Scott Galloway was talking about that, and Kara
Yeah,
Swisher on their Pivot podcast were talking about that. And the flip side to that is, well, that's true. Well, that may be true now. There's also this thing where if you get it wrong, you can be shamed on social media. And God only knows, all of us know we all fucked up when we were younger and did dumb things. I know I did. I know many other people did, and we all agreed to that. The double-edged sword to that, or the other side of it, is us fucking up, the people that we went on dates with having to be the laboratory for us to make mistakes and get things wrong, and then be able to like grow as human beings from it, it's not always actually fair. And what I love about the what you're proposing and the conversation that you're having is like, how do you give people some of those skills, right? Like, how do you start thinking about instead of the dating app, it kind of being a socialization app or a way in which people be able to develop some of those kind of skills. And we see a need for it because in the data that you and I have been looking at, COVID hit and dating apps rise in popularity spiked during COVID. But the other thing that happened that we see also happened is because people were lonely and by themselves, we saw a huge rise in pornography and in PornHub and OnlyFans and all these other very uh, revenue generating. I'm trying to avoid now that I've said those words, I'm trying to avoid saying the word sticky. Um, but they addictive. They had addictive. There were some addictive types of behaviors there.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I think that there's a huge opportunity to start to think about how we can socialize folks and how we can, to your point, like be able to like when you have your first relationships, what happens when you have your first fight? What
right.
happens when you have your first argue? How do you manage through arguments? How do you go through conflict? Maybe it's time to break up, right? Like maybe this isn't working out, right?
That's
You
exactly
know?
right. I think if you would just look up from, your current, software app and really start to dissect this, stickiness or just keeping people within your application. How about an improvement? Making things improving people's lives. I mean, I get that the adult platforms have a positive review and there's, like exponential growth. But there is a dark side to that too, which is, people who their mindsets are really awkward in real life and just within friendships, let alone just romantic relationships. And listen, what COVID is showing us is we love being together. Like we
Mhm.
need to be around each other.
Yeah.
Us not having, obviously that study that happened within orphanages in Romania, and babies not being held, and them, having a shortened lifespan. This isn't like you can't ignore that data. There's
Mhm.
something about us being together within proximity, and cortisol, just like the cortisol levels lowering because of serotonin and oxytocin being a part of our nature of being near each other. So
Mhm.
that's not going anywhere. So instead, why not use that data to bring people together, improve their outlook, their trajectory, their conflict resolution, their, how to, the art of conversation. There's like tons of ideas. Like start to think in that abundance mindset instead of this low level thinking of people like which the lower the failure rate the more they stay on the app. Come on, I mean there's just like, can we just do better? I'm sorry, I'm just like done with the way things are working and how unhappy everybody is, who is actively dating.
You know, one thing I think about too is the company that probably would have had they not ruined their I hate to go into the into off to a tangent here because I know we're talking specifically about the dating apps, but the company that probably would have made the most sense as a dating app, and I think they were originally going to do that, was Facebook. Because Facebook was the thing where it had connections and it had a lot of mutuals, and it was for a brief period of time. I think that there was an opportunity to, and I think I even heard that behind the scenes they were experimenting with something like that. But I think that once people's families and grandmothers and everybody got on, then it kind of that kind of broke that whole model. And now that website, I don't think I don't know that it's going to. I don't know whether it would be possible for that company to be able to do that again. I certainly don't think it's. I think that it's the trust element, which is and that's one thing. The trust element is a trust element has to be the most important thing in a dating app, because if the app itself is not working, like a dating app should almost be like a partner itself, right?
Mm,
Like a dating app should be a somebody you can trust. It's supposed to be your friend who's helping. It's your wing man or wing lady or wing non-binary person who is helping you at the bar or at the virtual bar or at the restaurant or wherever. Go have conversations with people, and it's keeping your secrets, and it's thinking about you and serving your best interest, right? And so having that trust element is so goddamn critical. And if you are serving up fake people and fake profiles, and if you are not deeply invested in the safety of the people that are using your product and making sure that they're not going to be attacked, or that the person that's on the other end is not going to be a danger to them, or or embarrass them, or
yeah.
humiliate them, or do any type of thing like that, then you're not doing your job. And like, I feel as though it sounds from what you've been describing that the a lot of these apps are more interested in revenue generation than they are in the well-beings of their users.
Well, also the longevity of these apps.
Yeah,
I'm betting, if I'm a betting person, which I am, you will like the longevity of your app you will dissolve into the ether, right?
yeah,
Because not only it's because you couldn't retain users because your fundamental model remains broken.
yeah.
And so someone with a better idea will, outdo you. And I think with that, it's if you just think about it, it's always pointing to the end user. Are you is is user satisfaction a part of your business model? And this is where I coach, and Brian does too. We consult companies to help you bring user experience strategy to the beginning of your product life cycle. That's where you're going to do the most damage and not spend a lot of money in development costs. So if you like really get someone who has that strategic background, you can develop just ideation off of problems that you currently have, create prototypes and test them with your end users to validate if your thinking is correct. And this could really not only happen with, let's say, current features that your competitors have, but you could create net new features that nobody has.
Hmm.
Things that we talked about on this podcast I have not seen. Why not? And those are ways. It's because you are lacking in the UX strategy at the beginning of your product life cycle.
Yeah, and the don't conform. That's the other thing. I'm sure a lot of these companies, when they see success, they go chasing after it, and that's why they like start integrating AI in ways that they maybe shouldn't, or start all going towards a swipe feature, thinking like swiping left and swiping right is the right thing for every single app, right? You
Can you
don't
imagine,
necessarily.
Brian, with sorry to interrupt you about the
Yeah.
swiping? Like who,
Uh-huh.
I mean, where did that came from? Zuckerberg? Like when
Yeah.
was that? 90,
Hot or not.
right?
Yeah.
Hot or not? Like what was that? 2001? Like why are
Yeah,
we
that sounds
still doing this?
1999, 1999, 98. Yeah,
Right. Why are we still doing this? Like,
so
who
dumb.
said this was the right way of doing? My evidence. and like, I think I can find some evidence behind this, but I know that there is evidence around just the swiping of people that makes you feel like shit, right? Especially when you're rejecting others. You don't feel good doing that. I don't care if it's just like a little temporary angry tantrum that you had, that like, this hot girl, I'm going to reject her just to make her feel bad. It's not satisfactory. Trust me. It doesn't. And if you really are in tune with yourself, you will see this format, this component of swiping left and right needs to be completely eliminated. It's horrendous. It's like
Yeah,
animalistic.
it is. I mean, it's so funny that you mentioned that too, because like it is animalistic and it's like because if you think about if you think about the users, and what I would love to do is if I were to do a research session, if I were to launch a research session, I would love to do an unmoderated session where it just becomes observation of what is the person doing,
Oh yeah.
and you're just recording their phone and being like, hey, can we screen cap your phone for a day? And I would guarantee you that half of those people, we could probably see them pretty quickly hop off from Tinder or one of these apps. And I mean, we see it in the number. I can look at the numbers right here,
Yeah.
and you can see they probably hop off from Tinder, which is net promotion score down, and then
Right.
they hop onto OnlyFans, net promotion score up. You
Right.
look at the revenue. Look at the revenue models. Also, same type of thing. Same. The graph goes the other way. And so, what would be learn from that is that we would learn that going to the base instinct and going to the visuals, you're actually, instead of engaging with the person and engaging with a actual human being, you're driving them off your site to satisfy immediate needs. It's not hard to figure out.
No.
I would guarantee I would bet the CEOs of all those dating apps, I would sit down and I would bet them that we would see that in a qualitative study, and then we could quantify it by running it through unmoderated testing.
I think the way our businesses are being run are need to be refactored. This
Yeah.
business model of constantly meeting a higher dollar amount instead, and that plateauing or taking a dip is somehow showing that you're unsuccessful. This is not working.
No.
I'm not against capitalism. I am against you going against our kind of the grain of humanity. That's what I'm against.
Well, and one also like wonders if you know what I mean, I kind of like look at this too around like what are we learning from, like, if we're thinking about, there could probably be a real effort if you were to take a whole bunch of these models together. I mean, I could imagine something amazing where you could take a dating app, uh like a really good dating app. You could take uh spring therapy or one of the therapy things, and you could even take perhaps OnlyFans, something like an OnlyFans, which is like a creator service. And if you were to bring those three elements together, thing pretty incredible in terms of being able to teach younger people or any type of people that are maybe people are new, like dipping their toes back into a dating scene, maybe older people or people who have widowed. There's so many different scenarios I could see. uh, Certainly, there's a big opportunity in the LGBTQ
Oh yeah.
space as well, where you could really get a whole bunch of different users and be able to um, create satisfaction amongst your folks, uh, have them be able to develop interpersonal skills, and relationships in meaning ways, also develop themselves, um, and uh, and then eventually be able to find out how you other verticals of revenue, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you guys want more, Brian and I are going to do a whiteboarding session soon on this business model you just spun up in a few seconds here. I think there is so much greenway here, right? I think there is so much that we can add, and the sky's the limit, honestly, with where we currently are with dating apps. And if you have an idea or you have a company and you want some, just exclusive consultant help, me and Brian would love to work with you. We have what in between us, how many years of experience without outing how old we are?
I mean, both of us together, we probably have, but at least between 35 to 40 years of
Yeah,
experience,
yeah,
right?
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And so, reach out. We would love to talk to you about what it is that your app platform is currently doing, and how we can help.
Yeah, and I would also say if you don't have a app or platform, but you're looking to spin something up, if you have, if you're a PM that's been laid off and you're listening to this, or if you're one of the many people in big tech who's wanting to put together a team, talk, come talk to us. Let's put
Yeah.
together the team. Right now is a great time to like put together the Yankees and make a fucking amazing product.
Like, subscribe, and follow, or become our next victim of bad UX.
UX Murder Mystery is a joint production of Eve, User Experience Design Agency, and CrowleyUX, where systems meet stories. It's hosted by Brian J. Crowley and Eve Eden. Edited by Kelsey Smith. Intro animation and logo design by Brian J. Crowley. The music is by Nicolas Lee. You can follow us at UX Murder Mystery. You can email us at questions@uxmurdermystery.com. UX Murder Mystery is a copyright 2025, Brian J. Crowley and Eve Eden. Thanks for listening.